Hey, it's Bobby. I wanted to begin to lay the foundation uh, for my series on Revelation uh, by talking about the day-year principle, which is actually common in the Bible, and I'll begin by going through some early examples. One is found in, and you'll begin to see what I mean in a moment. One is found in the law. I can't remember exactly where, but it's talking about the tithes, and it says to bring the tithe uh, once every 3 days. Well, in practice, when they would do the tithe, they would do it once every 3 years, and a lot of the um, translations actually, like, it's actually written once every 3 years because they just interpret that 3 days as 3 years. Another early example of the day year principle is in the fourth chapter of the book of Ezekiel, where God is commanding Ezekiel to lay on his side for a certain number of days, and with the iniquity, probably something to represent the iniquity of Israel, um, laying on his side for a certain number of days, and it says that each one of those days represents a year of their iniquity. And then he lays on his other side, and each one of the days that he lays, that the iniquity of Judah is laid on his side, represents a year of their actual iniquity. And so you have a day representing a year. And what happens is God will do this a lot in the the prophecies and in prophetic literature. He'll take something from the natural world or something on a small scale and use it to represent something on a bigger scale in a corresponding sort of way. Like one day corresponds to 1 year in real life. Um, Another instance of this is in the book of Daniel, the ninth chapter. There's the prophecy of the 70 weeks. And basically Gabriel comes to Daniel when he's praying about when the Jews would be able to go back to Jerusalem and rebuild the city and the temple, and because they were in exile at the time. And Gabriel says to Daniel that 70 weeks are determined until the anointing of the Holy One, uh, to make a completion of sins, and then goes on to talk about some other things involved in that prophecy, and I'll actually get into that in a future video coming soon. But the only way that that prophecy could have pointed to Jesus as the Messiah mentioned in the prophecy is if each day of those 70 weeks represents a year and the actual historical fulfillment. Because from the time that Daniel heard that prophecy, the 70 weeks, if literally interpreted, they passed by. 70 weeks is 490 days. So 490 days passed by, and the people began to wonder if the prophecy was true. And this is actually in literature from the time period. 490 months passed by. And they, because they had figured, well, if it's not 490 literal days, maybe it's 490 like weeks of weeks, and so 490 weeks pass by. Well, no, that's not it. Maybe it's 490 months, and so 70 weeks of months pass by, and there's nothing. So they figure, well, okay, maybe it's 70 weeks of years. Each day in the prophecy represents a year, in real life. And so 490 years go by, and guess what? Along comes Jesus and says the time is fulfilled. So in that instance, 490 days in the prophecy must be interpreted as 490 years in real life. 70 weeks is interpreted as 70 periods of 7 years. And that's the only way it could have pertained to Jesus. And I wanted to mention all this to you because this is a key point in understanding the book of Revelation. To apply this day-year principle, a day represents a year, to the book of Revelation would not be strange, but would actually be according to biblical precedent. And if you use the book of Daniel as a sort of prototype for understanding the book of Revelation, which would be valid, then you would interpret the periods of time in Revelation according to the day-year principle.